Almost the entire South Island is now in the firing line of ex-tropical Cyclone Gita, with states of emergencies declared in Christchurch and Buller. Of course, there have been widespread flight cancellations, 57 schools, early childhood centres have been shut. Westport basically just shut early. Forecasters say the worst winds are expected to strike the northwest tip of the South Island about now. That's Farewell Spit, and then heading across towards Nelson. Further over on the east coast tomorrow morning. Tracy Neal reports.
Well, I've called a state of emergency basically because of the experience we've had in the past. It's better to call early and give people the opportunity to take action ahead of a storm event such as the one we're about to experience.
Christchurch Mayor Leanne Dalzell explaining why the city's residents need to be prepared. She says Gita is proving to be an unknown force.
The storm itself can be very unpredictable, and so it's really hard to say exactly what will happen, when it will happen. We had flooding along the Heathcote in July last year, and we're expecting to see flooding again. We've already got some roads flooded.
A state of emergency has also been declared in Buller. Authorities there are working to evacuate people from a small number of seafront homes in the township of Granity due to flooding and high winds. Rain has been falling for hours over much of the South Island, but Kieran Doolan from the Met Service says the strongest winds are due to hit about now.
The actual centre is still offshore, still west of the country, but it's moving very rapidly southeast towards us. So the strongest winds and the big swells are pretty much on their way now for northern areas of the South Island and for the central areas of the North Island.
The Transport Agency says trees are now down across the highway from Riwaka to Takaka. Joe Richards lives in Puponga on the inside of Farewell Spit, where he's the editor of the Golden Bay Weekly. He had little choice but to work from home today as the road between his place and Collingwood was washed out again.
Yeah, it's one that was washed out about, I don't know, when we had the first storm was several weeks ago, and then the washout was washed out, and now the washout has been washed out even more. So it's a bit of a shambles. They've never actually managed to get around to completely fixing the road before it gets washed out again.
Just after 2 o'clock this afternoon, the Transport Agency closed State Highway 6 between Westport and Greymouth due to flooding and strong winds. Meanwhile, residents of Mapua and Ruby Bay are also worried about flooding. Joe Randall lives within metres of the beach. Floodwaters from the recent cyclone Fahey gutted the lower story of her family home as well as her gardens. This time around she has sandbags placed around her house already and a backup generator ready to go.
We've got a pump here. We've actually just bought ourselves a petrol pump as well in case the electricity does go out tonight. So at the moment we've got this pump here, which is an electric pump, which we will use because we always fill up here where we are. We're below sea level by the looks of us.
Heavy rain warnings were issued down to North Otago this afternoon as Gita swept further south than initially expected. The Otago Regional Council warns that North Otago rivers are rising rapidly and are likely to peak in the early hours tomorrow morning. Kieran Doolan of the Met Service says things are unlikely to calm down until tomorrow.
And then the next swell risk area would be the sort of Kaikoura coast, because there's a very strong southwest swell, or large southwest swell developing there in the overnight period into tomorrow morning.
State Highway 1 north and south of Kaikoura remains closed due to heavy rain and the risk of slips and rockfalls, and will be reassessed in the morning. State Highway 6 Rocks Road in Nelson remains open and is being monitored closely. Wind is increasing in the area and conditions will be assessed throughout the evening. For Checkpoint, Tracy Neal.